Alrighty, folks. Can everyone hear me? Testing. We are here. Hello, everybody, and welcome aboard. It is your host and founder of the American Rail Club and conductor on this this wild ride that just keeps getting wilder and wilder and wilder. Demetrius Villa. And sometimes, I went off this wild ride. So, welcome aboard to this Tuesday impromptu live stream. And it's going to be a nice, just small, quick live stream. And probably what we're going to do is that we're going to go do some of these news articles that we're going through, as well as talking a little bit about what's going on between the club and what's going on. And then we'll probably have, after we've done through all the topics, then we're going to do the calls at the end. So we're gonna try something a little different here because, having the impromptu calls, it does give some discussion, but I want to at least get through all the articles and see where that goes. So let's see who's in the live stream over here. Hello, just a hillbilly. Hello, Christian Lilly. Hello, Pensy fan. Hello, hijacked Raymond, Grambo, Pensy, Chicago Rail fan, David Mitchell, Trains for Robert. Alrighty, welcome aboard, and everybody who is in the audience in the Discord stage. Again, if you guys want to go ahead and be involved in the calls, be sure to go ahead in the link right there in the chat that is pinned. Alright, and the mic is on. So let's go through this because this is something that I've been really ticked off about for a while, and it's talking about what is going on with Brightline and with all the crashing that's going on. And it's not crashing, it's people getting in front of a speeding train and getting themselves killed. And I've said this before, and I've made this very clear. And just to probably make myself even clearer, in fact, I'm probably going to go ahead and bring up what I said on the channel, so that there's no confusion about anything that I've said. Okay, so it's not like I'm making it up or I'm going back on my word or anything like that. I want to be absolutely, completely, and utterly clear. Okay, so let's go over there. So this is what I said. Brightline should show every single dash cam footage of every incident they've encountered and will encounter. I've been extremely fair with the accidents, and at the beginning, publicly, I've had sympathy for those who happen to move themselves past flashing, ringing red lights and bells and reflective physical barricade and in front of a nearly 490-ton, 80-mile-an-hour object with extremely loud acoustic warning devices that is fixed on a moving track. Unfortunately, in today's society, particularly in a place such as South Florida, the only method of dissuasion is complete ridicule of anyone who thinks it's a good idea. It's not. Enough of showing the images of mangled vehicles to draw sympathy for simpletons. Start showing the footage of impatient idiots believing they can fast and furious a freaking train. Okay? And I don't care if that sounds edgy or whatever it is. I have about as much care as a 500-ton train going through a 2-ton car. Enough is enough. Even most of the comments on the video that shown, as you can see on the thumbnail, this is a pretty funny thumbnail that we've had today because it's a lot of crazy crap that's just been going on. Where is this? Trying to find where did I put that? Let's go ahead. Let's see if I can find it. Today's thumbnail, because it's kind of funny. I know it's not funny, but it's I'm trying to at least bring some brevity into our crazy world and our situation. So at least there we are. There's our logo. So if you guys have seen the video, this thumbnail kind of seems familiar because this is what happened. This guy passed through all the cars, passed through the gate, and got himself smashed by a train. If any of you are familiar with the old Lost in Space series, the 1960s one, the robot going, danger, danger, Will Robinson, danger. So I put that. There's a T-72 on the track, and a certain whores for oil over here. We'll talk about that also later. It's a crazy, dangerous world here, and it's funny, the troll face has come into a resurgence as of late, and I find it hilarious. That's just me. I've always liked the troll face ever since it came out, like the first time around. I was like, '09. I mean, for you guys were probably maybe like 4, half of you. I don't know. or I don't know. We got a lot of people in here that are Zoomers. We have a good mix of Zoomers, Millennials, etc. So, I mean, it's a good younger mix, you know, and that's basically what you're going to see. But yeah, person killed by Brightline in Florida. 4th incident in 6 days. So a lot of this is happening more in the northern region. So this happened in Delray Beach, in Broward County. Okay, so, you know, it really doesn't change, you know, that, oh, now they're starting to go over north into the Gold Coast. No, that's not it, because I know some people were saying, oh, now they're going to an unfamiliar place. No, this has been going on in South Florida for a pretty long time. Okay, so struck by a train, and this one was not a car. This was a person walking across the tracks. Now, if you guys are familiar with the FEC tracks, or any railroad track in particular, dotted along the tracks, there are many signs saying, no trespassing, this is private property, or something to that effect. So, this guy just walked across, train's probably honking, because here's the thing, if you're driving a train, right, if you're a train driver, you have a very, very long, narrow view of what's going on, because I've been in front of there as the trains are going along. It's pretty fun to see. Not fun to see somebody getting, you know, hit at all, but I mean, but when you're seeing this view, I mean, you can see and a lot of these guys have been trained to go ahead and see stuff for, you know, about a mile or two. So if they see somebody walking along the track, it's a very narrow vision where they can see somebody going. So they're honking the horn a lot of the times. You can see the train coming. You're going to hear the tracks, you know, whistling, and you're going to hear it. Yeah, that's when a train is coming closer. So you're going to hear that on the tracks, and you still get in front of a train. You know, it's a train, guys. You can't miss it, no matter if it's a sleek, you know, diesel, clean diesel, 125 mile an hour, you know, Siemens locomotive or whatever it is still a train. You cannot miss a freaking train. So yeah, that's my view on it. So Brightline released a video showing a car deliberately driving around railroad gates and onto the tracks before being hit by a car. And again, if you guys haven't seen it, we'll go ahead and see it again so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And we can go ahead and also see the... So let's go ahead and see this. All right, so there's the video. Now, of course, you can't really see that much, but it's different when somebody is walking across and when somebody is trained. So there you go. There's enough gates over here for people to see, and there's another train over here, right? So somebody got impatient and thought that train was done and let me just go. No, you don't go until the gates are up. And it's going to be right over here. Right there. And you hear the honking. So let's put that back. Let's go back a little bit more here. We're going to do is frame by frame analysis here. There we go. Frame by frame analysis, because I'm really sick of this garbage that keeps happening and Brightline keeps getting blamed. It is not Brightline's fault. It is these people's fault for getting in front of a moving frickin' train. Honk. You hear the honk. You clearly hear the honk. Again, let's go ahead. Boom. It was clearly honking, so there was enough time. Honk. Bang. And it was a long honk. Alright, so he turns the lights on in the cabin, the train stops, right? And the train's taking a while to stop, so look at how long it's taking for it to stop. And that's actually pretty quick for most trains. Okay, so the train cannot turn. The train cannot stop immediately. The train cannot swerve. Okay, somebody who is a driver has they're the ones in control of their car. Okay, Brightline did not magically. Let me see if I can just get something here for effect over here. Okay, there we are. We got our little car over here, so we can go ahead and explain this. Okay, And we got our, let's get a train over here. Let's get a nice train for effect. So we gotta, actually let's get something a little bit more of a Brightline color, right? So we got our train, right? I know, the most weeby things we can pick to make this. But, okay. So, Brightline's going through, right? Okay, Brightline cannot take this car and move it in front of it, okay? The car has to move itself in front of Brightline, because Brightline has only got one place to go. All these trains got one place to go, all right? This car, okay, as this train is coming along, got in front of it and got smashed, all right? That's what happened, okay? So anytime you see any of these articles saying, you know, Brightline killed, person killed by at least it's changing, right? It's not Brightline killed, you know, person killed by Brightline. But what it should say again is that, you know, somebody would prop themselves in front of a Brightline train. That should be the article, okay? Person deliberately moves in front of a Brightline train and gets themselves killed. That's what it is, okay? Because it's sickening and it's annoying, because it's going to impede on the progress of getting Brightline to go, because it's always negative news. And Brightline has a chance, and they're turning it around, it seems, with this. If they can keep going ahead and turning this around by saying, here, this is the footage, and release every single time this happens, okay? 99% of the time, if not 100% of the time, it's not Brightline. So here we go. This behavior is incredibly dangerous, irresponsible, and tragic for the surrounding community. Brightline teammates who are operating the train, the first responders who come to the scene, and it's devastating for the families of the trespassers, Brightline said in the statement earlier this week to the Miami Herald, which is a good and professional statement, okay? We can err away from a little bit of professionalism since we're not a giant multi-billion-dollar company, and, you know, we're a club and YouTube channel, and you know, at this point, I've let off a lot of restraint on some things, okay, and this is one of them, okay. So Ben Port, the senior VP of Brightline, says what makes these events so tragic is that they're preventable. That's the thing. This is a completely preventable mess, okay. So at least Brightline has been going now on the offensive on this instead of on the defensive. Okay, because I gave him the benefit of the doubt of going to the defensive, but I even told you know, several people, it's like, you know, this is gonna happen, and you gotta have to, you know, because people in South Florida, you know, tanto coscotazo, which means, you know, they're hard headed. Okay, so you gotta really put it into the minds of these people over and over again. Okay, which, look, even most people in South Florida aren't gonna be driving in front of the train. Right? Most people in general aren't, right? But you're going to have a bigger share of completely irresponsible morons that get in front of a moving train. All right? So that's where we'll leave it at that. So, I mean, yeah, it is just nuts. Let's see what else we got over here in the comments. Akbar Ali with the super chat. Declare all rails as public right-of-way and let anyone run DMUs as easy as NYC minibus. I mean, it is a private right of way. It's a right of way. The Brightline, the FEC has owned the tracks there. It has been their private property for more than 100 and close to 140 years in most of South Florida. 140 years. Okay, so it goes back before any, if not, you know, most 99% of communities that live in South Florida. I mean, you know, Miami was Fort Dallas before it was Miami, and it was still like a little small fishing village until Flagler brought it down over there. But I mean, it's still at that point, most of that stuff, the largest city in Florida prior to the FEC and prior to the growth of South Florida was Key West, okay, which wasn't connected to anything. All right, so let that be known there. Okay, but thank you again for the super chat there, Akbar Ali. It's very much appreciated. So I mean, let's go ahead and keep going over here. Hello from Aventuro, thank you. Having grown up by mainline, I know what they sound like even so far away. Yeah, and people, you know, it's you know, even in the modern industrial age, you should know what a train looks like. You know, Brightline needs to get the quadruple gate for the crossings. You know, that's the thing. How much more does Brightline need to do? Okay, you see the gates. I mean, you can't you can't ask for any more. Quadruple gates, this gates, that gates, because people still get in front of the gates, as we saw that one clip with the Mini Cooper. Let's see if we can find that one. Like you guys saw. Now it's hard to find. But you know, if you see it all these times, you know, it's people getting in front of the train. Okay, no one told you to get in front of this train. It's over and over again. Okay, there we are. This one. What's he doing on that side? Okay, what would a quadruple gates would have done? Okay, and this guy had, you know, he could have just gone forward and just gone out of there. That's all he could have done. He could have just driven straight out, and that would have been it. But he goes back. He drives all the way back. You know, seconds.
What is he doing?
Even they're confused. Seconds before, this train would have turned him into a mini coffin. Okay? This is just nuts. Okay? No, it is not Brightline's fault. Brightline is completely and utterly has done everything that they could have done and more. In fact, you know, past their due diligence, they don't have to go ahead and tell people warnings about trains. You know, they could have just donated, you know, a couple of bucks here and there to Operation Lifesaver, and that would have been considered due diligence enough. But Brightline has gone far and beyond that they've spent, and they are spending, $1 million in safety. So yeah, you know, and I'm kind of talking to the crowd over here, guys. I'm not trying to get mad or anything like that, but it just really gets me nuts. Better headline: Florida man killed by speeding train by Grambo. Yeah, that could be another one. It's just another Florida man day. The solution is no level crossings like a civilized country. Again, the FEC has preceded even the invention of the automobile. Okay, the FEC was there before the automobile. Okay, all the roads and all the crossings and everything there was done by the county, was done by FDOT, and was done all those. So what they could be doing is closing some of those crossings, and like they've done in Aventura, in some places in Aventura, another, well, Aventura's done one, which what they have here is, let me see if I can bring it up. If you guys are familiar with this, let me go to Google Maps. And again, the reason why they don't do the solution is because it's expensive and because it takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of time. But let me just go over here. Let's put this over to, there we are. There we are. All right, so let's go to Miami. Let's go to Aventura. Getting to the right place. It's like, you know, I know my town when I can just go around it pretty easily. There we are. Okay. So here we are, Biscayne Boulevard. There we go. Okay. There we are. Okay. Now, they didn't do the whole thing, which, you know, it's this interchange here is kind of a mess on Ives Dairy Road and Biscayne Boulevard. By the way, this is where the Aventura station is going to be, so you guys can know. And I've been there a couple times. It's a lot more built up than this. They've already have the structure over there, and they're building stuff. The rails have been moved around. So this is just an older satellite image. In fact, I don't know when the imagery was done, but this is an older image, far older image, because this is already almost done over here, the structure. So there's the FEC. This is Biscayne Boulevard, and you can already tell how many cars are all over here. But this is what they should be doing, right? That's your solution, is right there. Okay, there you are. That's it. Can't get caught by the train if you're above it, right? But these are the type of solutions that they need to be doing, okay? The train was here before. The train has precedence. The train has the right of way, not the cars. Now, and honestly, I've said this before, and I kind of need to get, maybe after this one video, is talk about how much the automobile has really destroyed American culture and just way of life. I mean, you know, you look at older cities and older European cities. I mean, look at this. This is like that one video that I said, you know, what is this? This looks like a planet of the cars. You know, this is not a planet for people. You don't see people over here. It's just cars upon cars upon cars upon parking garages. I don't know if you guys have seen that new video by Alan. But talking about parking garages upon bunches of parking garages upon this. The only times you get like a little walkable space, and I'll show it over here in Aventura, is this little area over here, and then maybe Gulfstream, the race course, which has like a little mall in between it. But even then, look at it. It's still all cars. It's the cars have precedence, and people have to go over on a bridge. So it really does tell you, who owns this area. It's not the people, it's the cars. The cars own the planet here. Okay? Look at this. Okay? All this space over here is all for cars. Do you see green? You don't see green. It's all cars. It's all concrete. Okay? So that's really an issue. That's the underlying issue there. It's not the cars. It's not the trains. Okay? The problem is the automobile. Okay? It's not the people's fault. It's not the train's fault. The automobile has overtaken the way we plan cities, and that's not a good way of doing it. And it's kind of sad because you look at South Florida, and it does look pretty, when you look at it, it instantly just looking at it. And this is where this is where the club got started, at the Biscayne Bay campus. And look at it. It's mostly a giant parking lot. Okay? At least 60% of that is a parking lot. Okay? Lot 1, Lot 2, Lot 3, Lot 4, Lot 5. The people to go ahead and live in the apartments over here. It's mostly, a lot. Thankfully here, there's mostly, some of the older, parks and the mangroves and stuff like that. But it's still, that's the problem. It's the car. That's the ultimate problem. But anyway, yeah. Look at how much room in the city is for parking. It's insane. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, and then we'll go one last thing, because we talked about this. In fact, let me just go ahead and link the video so you guys can kind of see Fisher, because I watched it and I thought it was pretty good. So this came out about 12 hours ago, and I also commented on it. Okay, so here's the video. And maybe at some point we'll get Alan Fisher on this channel too, but here's the link, so you guys can see. So yeah, these streets can be used for trams or buses. We need just more walkable space, honestly. Because again, you look at satellite image of a place like Miami, and it's literally from the beach all the way to the Everglades. It's great. It's just great. Parking, trains. Parking, road. I wish there were more trains, because there'll be less of this. Parking, road. Okay? And it's not the good sort of thing. Okay? So if you look like an older city, like let's say, let's go to the ultimate extreme, right? Let's go to Venice, where there's no cars allowed. Right? So let's go ahead and go to Venice. Okay? Now, you're not going to see green, right? But you're not going to see cars. Okay? But this whole entire area is something that you can walk, right? So that's sort of the difference. Now, again, it's an extreme example, right? So now instead of gray, it's just all red terracotta. Okay? But still, look at the difference. This is something that you can just easily, walk through and get through and go around through. It's kind of fun using Google Earth and just explaining this just in real live time. There you go. You got the Plaza San Marco. Okay, it's just mostly for people. Okay, or the Piazza San Marco. Okay, sorry, got the languages mixed up there. Okay, I should know better, but still, okay, it's the thing. It's made for people. Okay, and the boats come second. Okay, because you got all these the rivers here, the river systems here for. And I hate when people call, something in Florida like the Venice of Florida. Really, this is you're gonna compare Fort Lauderdale to Venice. This doesn't look like Venice. Look at this. This is just streets. Venice what? But anyway, let's. Oh yeah, we're still talking about South Florida. It doesn't end. But since we were talking about rents and prices and stuff like that, well, let's give let's South Florida down for just a little bit. Let's let it take a breather, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's go over this, right? So we talked about cars. Okay. So let's beat on cars. The real problem here. Okay. It's not South Florida. It's the cars. Okay. And it's the planning, urban planning doing that forces people into these cars. And I spoke a little bit. If you guys are on Patreon, I spoke a little bit about this in the little Patreon live stream update. That I calculated my cost of my living expenses per month, because I put everything on one card just to go ahead and just easily just pick out numbers, right? And in 1 month I spent about $400. Okay, half of that was food and some other things and stuff like that, and the other half was gasoline for my car. I am giving half my cost to my car. Now, I like my car, but I don't like my car that much for it to be taking half of my monthly cost, okay? And that's all I'm spending it on is just gasoline, okay? Not I'm telling the other part now that I have to go ahead and change the oil now, because it's closing in on the 10,000 miles that I've already, changed the oil the last time. Winter has completely beaten my car a good amount. I mean, it still runs and stuff like that. It's perfectly fine. But I still got to do a good amount of maintenance on that so I can go to work and then take that money and give it right back to the car. That's kind of what a parasite does, guys. You kind of, like a bug or something like that. You feed yourself, and it's just feeding this parasite. Cars are parasitic to culture, okay? And then look at this, it just keeps getting worse. So I've spoken about how, for at least for the last 2 years, because we've been in the 2020s for a good bit, and I've already explained that because of the chip crisis and the supply chain crisis, that it was going to be hard for automobile manufacturers to get raw material to build cars, and especially for just these small little things for the chips, because every car now is basically drive-by-wire. It cannot function without having a CPU in there, without having some sort of electronic for any number of systems. I'm not going to get too much into it, but what has that done? Car prices have risen. So look at this, a 3-year-old Nissan Versa, 66%. Okay, a used car. And they're probably not talking about the miles over here, about how many miles it has. It probably has something around like 60,000 miles or something like that. An average of $16,000. Okay, a new Versa is $15,000. Okay, and then you look at what the price of new cars are. Okay, let's say you wanted something like a cheap truck like the Ford. I think the Ford Maverick is the cheapest truck that Ford came out with in the last year or so. Starting price of $18,000. Here's the thing. You're not going to get the car for $18,000 because they're not going to give you base price cars at the lots, okay? Because the dealership runs the way that the system works in terms of how you buy a car, okay? So the dealership is going to get cars at a minimum of double that price now. So your starting price of a Ford Ranger, you're looking around $34,000 now, okay? With everything included. So it's insane. But yeah. CTR lead, the car supremacy doesn't really start after World War II. Yeah, and that's the thing. You look at older pictures of American cities, you look at older footage, and there was a car there. It wasn't like that. It was once you started suburbanization with the Levitt towns, once you started deurbanization within the cities, and once you had, people like Robert Moses get into the long trendles into government and start changing up the way that the Department of Transportation runs itself and what its priorities are, and start making highways and byways and parkways all over the place, then that's when things start to get messed up, because now it turns into something else. And of course GM and stuff like that. Okay, and the way that they went ahead with the streetcar conspiracy with companies like Firestone and other stuff like that, and how they, how the oil lobby and the car lobby basically destroyed American infrastructure. Okay? Because, again, we've seen this before. It's out in the open, okay? It's not like it's some sort of CIA top secret conspiracy theory, okay? It is a conspiracy. It's not a theory, okay? Because it's fact. Because the U.S. government and the U.S. Supreme Court even deemed GM and the conspiracy guilty of conspiracy, okay? And they charged them, what, $5,000? So the government itself was complicit in this conspiracy, okay? So, I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna slap your own posse $1 million fine, or tell them to revert back and stop buying up America's streetcars and destroying them, so you can go ahead and sell dirty diesel buses? No, you're gonna say, yeah, we did it wrong, guys. Here we are. We're gonna charge ourselves $5,000. In 1950 money, that's chump change. That's the price of a new Volvo in the 1950s. Yeah, so it would have been very different. Yeah, Al is correct. America would be very different if we had half the amount of cars. Because honestly, most people shouldn't be driving. I've said this multiple times before. Most people should not be driving. I mean, look at this: a Toyota Prius for $28,000. Okay, a Chevrolet Sonic. Okay, a piece of garbage little Chevy Sonic for $18,000. Okay, these are basic vehicles. All right, Dodge Caravan minivan, and it's probably the older Dodge Caravan for $25,000. Probably doesn't even have most of the options available and stuff like that. Okay, here we are. The fastest selling used vehicle gone an average of 24 days of sale with Tesla's electric Model Y compact SUV, average price of $67K. Okay, now I've talked about this, and funny enough, I was talking about this with my dad on the way home, because I'm very upset about the Biden administration. Sure, for a number of things, but what I've really been sick about was, we posted this before last week in the channel, was don't call him Amtrak Joe. He's now Electric Joe, because he's now trying to push for everybody going on electric cars. But I've said this before when I drove the Tesla. And for God's sake, I didn't click anything. $1 billion website, and you can't even keep the page open for me. Okay, you're constantly taking me to the next story. But anyway, so look at this. So the Model Y was supposed to have a starting price of $40,000 or $37,000, right? As Elon Musk said, it's going to be the car that it's going to be the entry level car. This is the car. This is going to be it. This is the car that anybody, the average American can buy. The Model 3 for $35,000, which is ridiculously still expensive now, especially now with inflation. Okay, I guarantee you most of us cannot afford that. Okay, but the Model Y was supposed to be, a step above that. Starting price $40,000. Average price $67,000 for a used electric car. Tell me how the government is going to go ahead and push electric cars on the population. So now gasoline cars are already expensive enough, but now we're going to go to electric cars. This is the issue. It's the car. It's the freaking car. Stop putting and just stop. Okay? American infrastructure does not need to be centered on the car. It needs to be centered on the American, not the car. So that's the issue. That's the problem. Okay? And it's just going up. You can see this here. Toyota Prius, January 21 price, $17,000, up $61,000 to $28,000. Okay, we sold Holly's car, because again, we weren't using it, and not like she was using it now either. But it's the thing is that we sold the car, and her dad was able to recoup the money that he went in buying the car and get a little extra. Which, it helps for paying for the funeral costs and everything. But, it's just, it's insane that, how this has happened in this country. And it's only going to get worse. Okay? And why is it going to get worse? So, now, I've been talking about this, and people keep getting upset. Why do I keep bringing this up? All right. So how does what does what's going on over in Ukraine have to do with trains? Well, here we go. The first thing that happens is that when war starts, they start attacking the supply chain, right? So there you go. I don't know how to speak Russian. I like the only two words I know is privet da and dos vidanya, right? But you know, yeah, that's the first thing that happens when war starts, right? So let me see. As a result of the mortar shelling of Panteleimonovka, the Donetsk Dnipropetrovsk railway was broken by the Kiev security forces. RIA Novosti correspondent reports. Okay, so the Ukrainian government and the separatists in eastern Ukraine have been having a spat, and you know, the government of Ukraine doesn't want to stop. The separatists don't want to stop, and Russia certainly is going to get involved, and then we're going to get involved. So that's all I'm going to say on that. I'm not going to go into any war games on that. But why is this happening? Okay, and why is this happening? And I've mentioned this is because we've basically gone in decline. So this part over here, part 2 of this article, democratic recession, right? Political scientists have been warning for several years that democracy is in decline around the world. Larry Diamond of Stanford University has described the trend as democratic recession. Freedom House, which tracks every country in the world, reports that global political freedom has declined every year since 2006. Last year, Freedom House concluded the countries experiencing deterioration outnumbered those with improvements by the largest margin recorded since the negative trend began. Okay, so this goes into, of course, you know, a lot of these governments, but really the thing, you know, again, they know that the U.S. and Europe are now struggling to lift living standards for much of their population. Okay, so Putin and Xi, Vladimir Putin of Russia, Xi Jinping of China, also know that many Western countries are polarized, rived by cultural conflicts between metropolitan areas and more rural ones. Major political parties are weak, as in the case of the old center-left parties in Britain, France, and elsewhere, or themselves behaving in undemocratic ways. Now, of course, this article is biased to one way. You know, I thought like, oh, so you're talking about what's going on in Canada right now. You know, no, as with the Republican Party in the United States, it's like, Republican Party is weak and ineffective. You know, I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, they're not doing anything. But we'll talk about the Republican Party in just a little bit of what the Republican Party has been up to. But anyway, yeah. So this is the issue because America has gone in decline. Okay, and again, this starts with infrastructure. Okay, so I'm tying this all up here. You guys think that I'm harebrained talking about this because I want to be a political correspondent. As Holly says, like, why don't you just go make a politics channel? And I said, because I've tried. Okay, I've done it, and every time I get to talking about something, it just makes me even madder. Okay, but the thing is, and number one, I also think this is important, and it's good to have it. There's too many political commentators now, and not enough political action. Let's be honest. So at least let me pick something to do political action, which is at least fixing infrastructure, right? You know, we're not being violent. We're not being, you know, audacious. Well, we're being audacious when we go to these meetings and stuff like that. But we're not being, you know, it's nothing to do with violence or anything like that. And whether, you know, whatever something happens, you know, it doesn't matter what's going to happen, you know. Somebody's has to fix that infrastructure, right? Somebody's got to be there, whether whatever happens or not. You know, after World War III, you know, people have to build back, right? So we will build back, you know, better. But this is, oh God, why does Yahoo keep doing this? I didn't click any of these articles. This doesn't happen on any news website. So this is the problem, okay? And because of these issues that is going on within our own country, okay, and I've said this before. Humanity for, let's say, 6,000 recorded years, right? Okay, because, you know, people say 10,000 years, but we kind of got 6,000 years mostly pat down, okay? And very well pat down of when really modern, or let's say human history really starts rolling. For most of human history, okay, rulers and people in government were not wearing suits and ties and stuff like that. They were wearing crowns, they were wearing armor, and instead of pens, they had swords, okay? Or hammers or axes and stuff like that, right? Okay, I'm very simplifying it down to a point, but you get what I'm saying. The government of having the the process of having a democratic government or a government by election by the mass populace is not new, and it's been tried before, and to a point that the Greeks said this is a waste of time, don't do it. And where the Romans had it, as the Roman Republic, but when they made the Roman Empire, that's when things in Rome started to really pick up. And they had an empire for a very long time. Depending on where you cut the Roman Empire, at the end of the Western Roman Empire, at the end of the Byzantine Eastern Roman Empire, which, you're looking on close to 1,500 years at that point. But regardless, humanity hasn't changed, which is why this hasn't done well for humankind. Having, grid-like systems of roads all over the place hasn't done well because we're still essentially the same type of people, right? We like to walk, we like to get places, and we like to communicate in smaller enclaved spaces, okay, between like-minded individuals and like-minded people. So this sort of thing has, been really not too well for humanity, okay? I'm not going to try to go full Ted Kaczynski over here, but you get the point. This hasn't worked out well. This hasn't been organic. Let's put it this way. If it built organically to a point where people were, we at the tail end of the 19th century, okay? But a lot of historians call it the Belle Epoque, right? The beautiful age. Okay, and you had, let's see, a lot of these, world fairs, and they were building these world fairs, and they looked fantastic and beautiful, and you saw how the city architecture was back in that day. But when you've had that, it was sort of at an organic state, and it kind of got, it very much got disrupted during World War I. But after World War II, that was basically the end of that. That sort of organic shaping and a lot of it has to do with, kind of America's fault in a sense, because we sort of took over control of where everybody's spending was going to go after the Marshall Plan. And you see this in places like in Europe. And this was one other thing that we mentioned in a post. If I can go back to the channel yet again. Let's go to channel. Let's go to community. Things could be a lot different. Okay? So this was Dusseldorf in Germany, right? Again, this was mostly because of American presence and American, influence, right? And you see the same thing in the Netherlands and in Belgium and some other places like that, right? Especially in northwestern Europe, okay? Where they were building a lot of roads and stuff like that, and Europeans came to the census and like, nah, let's go back to what we're doing. So this is what should have been organically done, okay? That's what I'm talking about, is having walkable spaces, okay? You don't have to completely destroy industrial society and destroy industrial order, because you're always going to have, I wouldn't say industrial society, you're always going to have cities, okay? That's a given. There's always been cities, okay? But cities can be done better. Okay, you wouldn't have such a distinction between rural and suburban Americans. Rural and urban Americans, when you have suburbans in the middle, putting a much bigger wedge in between the two. Because when you had cities and just rural areas and towns in between rural areas, of course there was a divide. There's always going to be city people and town folk, but it was a much more integrated area where the rural area was going ahead and a lot of these resources were going into cities, and cities were outputting a lot of other resources, okay? But now you've had the suburban just driving this giant wedge in between what should be an organic operation and an organic relationship between rural and city. So that's what's caused, a lot of the dissension in not just America, but a lot of American-influenced, especially in the West, a lot of American-influenced countries, okay? So, unfortunately, we're kind of paying for our sins in a sense, okay? Or the sins of the last generations that thought, unlimited automobiles was a great idea, because it wasn't. Now, of course, you can go into, whether they're what is Russia in the right or Ukraine is in the right. We're not going to get into that, because it doesn't matter, because a lot of people are going to die. It's going to be unfortunate. It's going to be horrifying. It's going to be terrible. So pray for everybody on both sides that's going to, because a lot of civilians are going to get caught, okay, in this. There's no way that they don't, okay? And we're going to get involved too, unfortunately. Because it seems Britain, as always, as usual, gets itself in a war and then keeps asking for us for help. Okay, we've done this 2 times. It doesn't work. Okay, so I think I'm sorry for our British audience over there, but I think it's time we stop. We stop to ignore our cousins across the channel over there. Not that I'm even British or anything like that anyway. I'm mostly Spaniard and Italian, so I have even less to do with the British anyway. I really don't. But that's what we're talking about there, okay? Because of that, what's gone and happened with our own country and with the way that we've really just completely and utterly just destroyed our own society and have our own infrastructure crumbled. Yeah. Every other country is going to see us as weak now, okay? The countries that operate on strong men, okay? Because, you're going to have that. They're going to think might is right. And that's what it is. You can have the most eloquent words. You can be able to be a debate hawk, and, you are a debate karate champion, and you can jiu-jitsu your way out of a, like an MMA fighter through a debate. But guess what? An MMA fighter is still going to beat you bloody and beat you down to a pulp, and then you're not going to speak because you're going to have your teeth in your throat. So, unfortunately, that's the way nature works, guys, okay? And human beings, can get very, very violent. All right? So, let's bring it back home and talk about how this is it just keeps getting worse. So, Miami is in the news again. In national news again. What for? Rents reach insane levels across U.S. with no end in sight. I know I keep blackpilling you guys on here, but I'm trying to just, I'm giving, I'm not just blackpilling, okay? I'm giving solutions too. It's not like I'm saying, everything sucks and that's it, okay? And we're gonna have some funnier articles over here. We're gonna have one funny that comes up after this, and then we're gonna go into our calls. Okay, so we're getting there. All right. So Crystal Guerra's Miami apartment has a tiny kitchen, cracked tiles, warped cabinets, no dishwasher, and hardly any storage space. And I've told this to people before. Okay. The thing is that with cities like this, that when the problem is that, especially in the United States, we're a service economy, right? We're not a physical economy anymore, or we're not a goods economy, right? We're not giving physical goods anymore. Everything is a service economy, okay? That means people sit in a chair and they're just, plopping away on Excel or making BS PowerPoints, okay? That is most entry-level analysts' work. I've been there plenty of times, okay? It is just that over and over again. But the thing is, okay, because we don't have our own economy, we don't have a self-sustaining system, cities are just going to get more cramped, and you're going to have a demand for people to come more into cities because that's the only way you can make money is through a service economy. And that's really a big issue, too. Car service economy, a complete recipe for destruction, okay? You're seeing it in action right now, unfortunately, okay? And that's the thing in Miami. A broom closet is going to be $2K a month, okay? Because she's not renting that house; she's renting a little subunit in that house, okay? Because that's a duplex, okay? So she's renting a little subunit there, okay? But Guerra was fine with the apartment's shortcomings. It was all being part of a 32-year-old graduate student in South Florida, okay? And if you're a graduate student still at 32, you need to rethink your choices too. All right, let's be honest, okay? This is not all the economy's fault either, okay? Millennials who keep thinking that, college is the right thing is also a major problem in our economy, okay? We gotta stop, okay? This generation, it's time to stop, okay? Stop the whole college scam, because that's the other scam. And that's going to be the other bubble that's going to come up, is going to be the college loan bubble, all right? That was until the new owner bought the property and told it the rent was rising from $1,500, okay? 1,500 to nearly 19,500. I'm sorry. It will be 19,000 soon. But okay, let's put it $1,950, a 26% increase that Guerra said meant her rent would account for the majority of her take-home pay from the University of Miami. Okay? So now you can't even live because all you're doing is just going ahead and spending all your money on rent, on your car too. Don't forget that the car is taking a lot of that money too. That parasite just needs that money. Gotta get that money. Gotta run me. You gotta run me. But the thing is, again, and I've said this. So the place that I had down in Columbus, Indiana, 3 bedrooms, close to about 2,000 square foot, for about $1,100 a month. Okay, now mind you, that's it's a little bit on the more expensive side in Indiana. Okay, and especially since Columbus is a pretty in-demand town because you have Cummins, you have Toyota, and you have a bunch of other companies. Again, it's not a service economy there. Now you have a production economy where they're actually making stuff in that town. So at least the stark difference between poor and rich is not as divided as in places that are completely service-based economies like New York, like Los Angeles, and like Miami. Okay, but again, at least with that, again, that brings the price down. Okay, still there's problems with that in Columbus because you have, especially in today's American factories and American economies, you have about 40% of people working in the factories and 60% working in the office. Okay, so that's an issue. Okay, and that also needs to change. That ratio needs to change. So yeah, in the 50 largest U.S. metro areas, median rent rose an astounding 19.3% from December 2020 to December 2021, according to Realtor.com analysis of properties with 2 or fewer bedrooms. And nowhere was the jump bigger than in the Miami metro area, where the median rent exploded to $2,850. That's for a 2-bedroom. $2,850. So as Hollywood had said it before, so you cannot go to sleep, and for the whole night you hear do 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 and sirens and cars and sirens and cars and do 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 all night long. $2,850. What a vibrant, let's go to New York too. What a vibrant city. Vibrant. This is unreal, folks. Okay. And again, we're not knocking cities. We're knocking everything, right? We're knocking everything down. Because the thing is, we have to really look back at everything we're doing wrong. And it's not like we're going to fix everything, okay? We're not here to make utopia, okay? Let's get that point across. We're not here to make utopia. Anybody who's wanting to make a utopia is a complete idiot. Because all you're going to do is end up killing people at some point, okay? And a lot of people. You cannot make utopia on Earth, but you can certainly make life a little bit better for most people. Okay, so that's sort of the issue over here. Okay, things have gotten so bad in Boston, which has nearly overtaken San Francisco as the nation's second most expensive rental market, that one resident went viral for jokingly putting an igloo on the market for $2,700 a month. Heat, hot water not included, Jonathan Burke tweeted. So I thought that was funny. And again, this is just going nuts. Okay, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, rental vacancy rates during the fourth quarter of 2021 fell to 5.6, the lowest since 1984. Without a lot of rental vacancy that landlords are accustomed to having, that gives them some pricing power because they're not sitting on empty units that they need to fill. So again, that's supply and demand, right? Because people need to live and they need to be in places, they're forced to live in these apartments. And then the landlord just go ahead and just rake up the prices, okay? We're not going to get into, what should we do about the landlord question or stuff like that, and that's not even something you can do, okay? You're not going to go full, Mao and go after the landlords because that doesn't end well either, okay? There's a solution that can be done that's, that nobody wants to do because then you get called the word. Okay, but anyway, and we're not going to talk about that right now. So that's an issue, right? Rent just keeps rising all over the place. Inflation keeps rising. Gas keeps rising. So yes, things are getting worse. But, surely surely there's got to be some people that have some sense, right? There's got to be some people that can maybe, in our political system, as broken and as completely terrible as it is, maybe somebody with some sense can be able to put things right and be able to fix, at least our railroad systems, and be able to get people back to work and be able to sort of put this down, right? Right? So, I came across this today. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, okay? I'm as straight as can be. I love females, okay? That's no everybody who knows me knows that I kind of have a problem with that in a sense, okay? Sometimes it can be a little too much, okay? Especially when it comes to some other stuff like that, okay? But the thing is, this is ridiculous, okay? There's no respect anymore in our own public decorum, okay? A Texas railroad or a candidate. I can't even speak anymore. This is just insane. I'm trying to bring this in such a way. Oh man, I'm like, what is going on in this country anymore? Okay. So I'll just play this because at least this, I think they've censored a lot of it, which I'm not going to put the uncensored version. You guys can go ahead and look for it for yourself, you bunch of coomers. But go ahead. So let's play this.
New at 10, a candidate for the Railroad Commission faces backlash tonight for a racy campaign video. The TikTok shows a Republican seated on top of an oil pump jack, almost completely naked. She tells Eyewitness News reporter Matt Houston she's trying to make a point.
What point? I mean these points. I mean, you kind of made that point. Kind of titillating in a sense. But hey,
early starting tomorrow.
Despite the TikTok, Sarah Stogner is not a fringe candidate. In a January U of H poll, she finished second, just 4 points behind the railroad commissioner she wants to replace. The Express News even endorsed her in the Republican primary until today.
So. Again, this is not a nobody. This is not like, some fringe candidate. Again, like they said.
I don't even know where to begin. As a political scientist, I've never seen anything like that.
I feel the same way, too.
UTSA political scientist John Taylor says the TikTok is working as intended, though he finds little comfort in its success.
It's a TikTok, okay? That's another problem, okay? We got to get rid of cars, okay? Not all the cars, but we got to get rid of a lot of cars, okay? We got to turn around the service economy, and we definitely have to ban TikTok, okay? That's definitely one thing that has to go.
Yeah, we're not at idiocracy yet, but it sometimes makes me wonder when you see
Idiocracy. If you guys have not seen Idiocracy, do see it, okay? Because we're already there. We're already at Idiocracy. We're beyond Idiocracy. This is insane.
Stuff like this.
Thousands of people have already watched the video, perhaps highlighting how little attention the railroad commissioner's race usually earns. Sad, Taylor says, since they're among the most powerful politicians in Texas charged with regulating oil and gas. Okay. Stogner says that's partly her.
And that's kind of the other thing, I understand, at least in Texas, that because oil is such a massive commodity over there, which is, that's fine. They have the natural resources. Why not? Why don't let it go to waste? But why the Railroad Commission is really more in charge of oil and gas, I don't really get it. So, but of course, trains are transporting oil and gas, and if you're in charge of the Railroad Commission, you're basically in charge of how that gasoline and oil gets distributed. So, or at least facilitating that distribution for a more streamlined effect. But still,
her point.
I want to talk about flaring. I want to talk about winterizing.
And she's got an awful face. I think the only assets she had were just the assets. But I mean, that's like a long horse face. I mean,
our
come on.
intrastate pipelines. But that's boring. That doesn't get clickbait.
But it doesn't seem like people are talking about the serious issues. They're talking about you.
That's not my intent. I want to put my clothes back on and have a serious conversation.
Then keep them on. That's all. Okay? But this is insane. And this woman is 37 years old. She's a mother. She's a wife. First of all, if I was the husband, I would have said no, yes to that at all. Okay? You know, sometimes I really, and not sometimes, all the time I really wish Holly were here. Because if she said this, she saw this, she would have had an absolute laugh at this. Okay? Her reaction would have been hilarious. Because this is really, this just showing the debasement of our politics in general. Okay? We don't have discussions anymore, you know, professional, actual discussions. Not just discussions, actual results out of them. Because it's just talk and BS. That's all it is. So instead of that, it's just this completely. Okay? So again, the reaction to it is insane. So she tweeted, Sarah Stogner is this anybody who's in Texas, you know, if you vote for her, you got an issue. Okay? Not that, you know, voting is really going to do much. You know, we got to really get more involved, honestly. You know, as millennials. And I know I've been talking at this point over and over again. But this is the issue. And again, she's a millennial, but she's getting involved in the wrong things. That's the problem about this. You know, it's ridiculous how our generation has just gotten involved in politics, and you know, half of us are nuts, complete freaking nuts. This is insane. So and again, and she said like, oh, they said I needed money. I have other assets. You know, really, what you got? Is OnlyFans now? This is what we're going to. Again, I'm confused. Are you running for political office or auditioning to be a stripper? And then you have look at this fat coomer over here. Look at this fat guy. That's another problem. You got like these fat like disgusting boomers. They're like this. How many times can I vote? I literally had a customer today. It was just like this fat old boomer guy. It was just wanted to get him out of there as quickly as possible because he was just ridiculous. Anyway, look at this. And this guy is married, or at least has a significant other. I don't know. You can't tell anymore what people do nowadays. Everybody needs to get out and vote. It's our duty as patriotic Americans. As a Texan, I believe that if one has the galls to pull this kind of stunt off, you deserve my vote. This is what Americans have turned into. When 100 years ago, this woman would have been caned and probably thrown into a facility for help, for real mental help. I'm being serious. That's what would have happened. Okay, this is what America has turned into. Sad. Some people like to display their qualifications, but if this is all you have, yeah. When you literally have nothing to base your candidacy on, go with stripper, rides mechanical bull. Not just the bull. She was riding an oil rig. Okay. So that's why I literally put, gee, I hope we finally get somebody who can help our railroad economy or help our railroad infrastructure. It's not going to be a complete lobbyist whore for oil. Oops, there we are. If you want to make money on OnlyFans, just do that. This ad is going to confuse people because people don't tend to want to associate railroad commissioners with softcore porn. This is, and again, this is completely insane, and this is an issue. Okay. No, millennials, bad. Very, very bad. Okay? You know, it's just getting worse. Because that's the thing. You know, the boomer generation is bad, but, now it's just completely, spiraling out of control with each generation because there hasn't been a really set point of where decorum should be. Okay? I don't know if you guys have seen, like, movies in the 70s, but they were they were awful. And that was, like, the high point for, for the baby boomer generation to be completely creative. Okay, so if you want to see the point of creativity, look at movies in the 1970s. T and A everywhere. But hey, that's what it is. Yeah, good. The society is going down the tubes, man. Raymond Goodrich second. All right, so that's our articles for today. We're not going to get too much into any more of this. It's 9:34, so good. I've stopped it at about an hour, so I've talked enough. Let's get some other people to talk in. So if you are in our Discord chat, and, well, if you're in the stage, raise your hand if you want to go on stage. And it seems that first on stage, or whoever has their hand raised, is David Mitchell. Very much a regular on here. And again, I'm going to put this stage for people. Keep it to 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'm actually going to count on my watch over here, my trusty old Casio. I'm going to go ahead and make sure we got 5 minutes over here. Okay? I'm going to try to let you talk for most of the time, so don't worry. All right, David, you are on. Invited to speak. Welcome aboard.
Hey, Demo.
How's it going, man?
Doing good. A little tired from work today.
I know the feel. It's a weekday for me, too, which is why I'm drinking water.
Well, I'm off tomorrow and the day afterward, but I sent you some article from Texas talking about something that I believe pretty good.
All right, can you kind of summarize them, not just for me, but the audience as well?
It's a transload facility. You know, like transferring from road to rail.
Okay.
They have a couple of them planned to build, and one of them in Texas, another one in Ohio. Like, I sent you the article already.
I got that, David, but the thing is that you also got to, kind of summarize it for everybody here in the audience, because we don't know what at least let's put it this way. I have an idea what you're talking about, but the rest of the audience doesn't know what you're kind of talking about.
Well, what I'm talking about is that they are building a new way to, or technically they're bringing back old way to road trains back up from truck.
Right.
Which is good because we're bringing something that is actually more efficient back into the game.
Okay.
Am I right?
Yeah. And again, having that available to facilitate goods and service, goods to be able to be moved on trains quicker and easier, rather than just putting everything on trucks, it is a better way of moving products around, right? At least a more convenient and let's put it this way: a lot less resources need to be taken up in order to move things by train.
Yep. Now, the facility that they have planned in Texas is going to be right off of Interstate 10.
Okay, so right where trucks get off.
Yeah, and the facility is going to be big. For rail.
Yeah.
So that's a big and a good thing, too.
Yeah, at least that's a good thing. Any thoughts on any of the articles or any of the stories of this week?
Yeah. My thought on the Florida one. It did tell you how crooked some people are to blame trains when it's people who are being freaking idiots' fault,
Yeah. No, it's, again, like I said, it's not Brightline's fault.
Oh, I did send you a little meme that it's something that is part of what we're talking about with student debt and stuff.
Yeah, I got that. Let me get actually the link and put that up, because I was just looking at it on the images, and I thought, maybe it's a good idea. Let's just put that up on here for people to see. Let me go ahead and get it now.
Because I actually posted it on Facebook, and a boomer went off on me. Like, literally, he called our generation the P blank Y.
Yeah, I know, and like this whole, and I kind of get it, because I'm guilty of it too. This whole generational war thing, and you haven't really seen that in much of history. Where generations have their own names and people start calling each other this and that. Yeah, okay. We know the boomers are at fault for a lot of societal ills and economic woes and stuff like that. I get it.
Yeah.
But now we're empowered now, and or at least millennials are starting to come in power now, and this is the stuff that they're doing. Going around with pasties and riding the bull on the oil, riding that big giant oil. It's but still,
right?
Yeah, but this again, it's an issue, because it's not like, at least in any other point in history prior to, the baby boomer generation, or at least prior to the 1950s, you didn't have to buy a car to start a family. You didn't have to go ahead and buy a house. A lot of it was intergenerational housing, and most people stayed in the same businesses that the families ran. Now with that structure completely thrown out the window so, kids can go to college and get a professional degree and become an engineer or this or that, or which basically they just turn you into an analyst and you're just making Excel sheets all day long. That doesn't contribute anything. You don't have something tangible to hold on to. Anyway.
Yeah, and did Jane, when I was telling you about it, he went off on me and he told me about how our generating is problematic, and I told him your generating did a lot of wrong, so don't give me any of that.
Yeah. Anyway.
And I reported him after that and got his Facebook terminated.
Yeah, I know, but that's not going to do much of anything. I don't really care to report, people and stuff like that. I just don't talk to. That's why I'm not on Facebook anymore, because I just don't tend to talk to or want to talk with people anymore, because I know it's just going to get upset. And I'm not going to change somebody's mind when they're already completely and utterly dumb enough to not figure out common logical sense. So I don't try to argue with people, honestly. It's not worth it. But anyway, David, thank you so much for coming on board. I appreciate it.
No problem, man.
Take
Anytime.
care. Alrighty. So, let's see. Anybody in the audience, if you have your hand raised, you will come on next. So it seems Pensy Fan is the next to come on board. So welcome aboard, Pensy Fan. You have been invited to speak.
Thanks for having me on board with the stream. I love this stream, and I think this is the second time I was invited on to
You
one
attend
of
a
these
candidate for the
ARC
Railroad
live
Commission
streams.
faces
Sorry if there's a
backlash
little bit of
tonight for
reverb.
a
I'm just
racy
in
campaign.
a apartment building on my campus. That good sustainable living, not relying on a car in order to go from A to B, using public transport to and from the city. But basically, yeah, I would have to agree with most of the things he said. One thing I would like to point out is, especially with the housing, and one of the main reasons why rent prices, especially in the suburban areas, are rising so much, as well as a shortage of cars, is I think everyone is scared of the coup, to say the least. Ever since the high coup rates in the city in early 2020, that drove a lot of people away from the cities as quickly as possible.
Oh, definitely.
Unfortunately, around the same time when cities were starting to develop.
Yeah.
And because of that, everyone's fighting for a house. Everyone wants to have anything that's available on the market, so much that even if they price gouge, they're still willing to pay that price. I remember seeing an article back in, the summer of 21, saying that a house that suffered a lot of fire damage in Oregon sold as is for $400,000.
Yeah, that's insane, and like the things I posted, you can go ahead and buy a house back in the 1930s and 40s and build it yourself for less than for $600 back then, which wasn't that much. We're talking about around $20,000 in today's money, minus the massive amount of inflation that has happened in the last 2 or 3 years.
And likewise, my great-grandfather also built his own house from scratch. I think he got it from some sort of housing catalog that they had back in the 30s or 40s. And
Right.
He built a small, it's a relatively small house when compared to the other ones, but it's good and it still stands to this day. Somewhere in New Jersey, I believe.
That's a really good thing to have, man.
Yeah, so in the meantime, going back on one of the other prominent topics towards the beginning of the stream, I would definitely say that there should be an effort to minimize the interactions of cars and trains. The Long Island Railroad, which is my home railroad, they've been undertaking this project very intensely with the third track project. Not only are they adding the third track between Hicksville and Floral Park, but they also removed the 7 grade crossings, so this way there aren't as many vehicle strikes for the railroad. So this way it's less delays, less accidents, and even though this may be more difficult for Brightline, I would honestly suggest either building more overpasses or underpasses, or even closing a few crossings, especially if they're a little bit repetitive, like less than half a mile apart from each other, and that could be seen as duplicate. So this way there are fewer interactions between roads and rail.
Yeah, and that's what I've said. It's Brightline doesn't need to go ahead and take the entire track and put it above grade. It is the responsibility of the Florida Department of Transportation, in conjunction with working with Brightline to get this done, because it's not that it's going to get this done alone. But they need to close some crossings because there are way too many crossings in so many areas. that to the point that you have just little streets that are crossing over, and you can just see, along the FEC, just these little streets and these little crossings where there's not that many cars going through. And that's where, some other issues happen. Again, they're mostly at the more trafficked areas, the more trafficked crossings, but these small crossings don't help. So if there was more effort in closing up some of those crossings, and then, as you said, putting more overpasses or underpasses, that also helps to decrease the amount of people getting there, and it helps Brightline too. And again, it really, as you said, and as I've said, and as we've all been saying here, it really comes down to decreasing car culture as a whole in this country.
Right. And another thing that I'm honestly a little bit upset about is the article you posted a few days ago about Biden supporting more funding for electric vehicles rather than the rail industry. And at this point, I'm sad, but at the same time kind of not surprised, because at the end of the day, the U.S. is car-based, and it has been since the mid-1940s, with all the Levittowns that you mentioned, all the suburban routes being based on cars. In the meantime, there is such a thing known as a streetcar suburb, where they have streetcars running through the suburbs. I think there's a few towns in Philly or Switzerland that have that. But anyways,
yeah,
the U.S. has always been car-centric, and unfortunately, because of that, any politician, whether it be Republican or Democrat, has to satisfy the needs of the people in that case, in which they have to, unfortunately, supply the inefficient car-based society.
Yeah.
However, in order to push this society away from the car and more towards rail, I would suggest more companies like Brightline, privately funded and not reliant on political interference, to be established. So not only private inner city roads, this can also be private commuter lines, privately owned streetcars, but anything that's rail-based that gets people more reliant on public transport, which is much more efficient than having your own SUV. And you can even combine the two with Brightline Plus or Brightline Bikes.
No,
started the bike rental service recently.
Pensy fan, you're completely correct on this, and I agree with this. Again, it's having not only a balance, but also being able to mix and match to give people an option. Because at the end of the day, that's all it's about. It's about giving people options to be able to do and be able to get done. Because again, centered around people instead of being centered around cars, that's where you start to have better cities. Again, I appreciate you for coming on, man. I really do.
Thank you. It's one of the few times where I'm not bombarded with all the schoolwork. So.
I know, man. So, take your time with it and enjoy the break. Alrighty. So, we did have some super chats over here, so let's take just a bit of a break, and then we'll bring in, if anybody else in the audience is the last chance to put your hands up. I see CTR Lee has his hands up, so he'll be next. If anybody else has their hands up, we'll go ahead and take them next afterwards, and that will be toward the end of the, we'll call it an end for that. Shock2957 with the big super chat. Thank you very much, man. LA Union Station $2 billion upgrade. Thoughts? That was something I think that came out it was like 4 years ago or something like that.
New at 10, a candidate for the Railroad Commission.
Okay, I'm going to close that tab because I don't know what's the matter with news tabs anymore. I just can't. They don't want to keep themselves on there. They just want to keep people busy and looking at BS. Let me see if I can find an article for that. The thing is that the problem that I have with the $2 billion upgrade is that, number one, it's $2 billion, right? It doesn't need to be $2 billion. It can be a heck of a lot less expensive than that. It shouldn't be $2 billion. That would be $2 billion buys you half a project, honestly. $2 billion could build a whole entire street line system. So it's kind of insane to have that, and there's no, let's put it this way, there's no end goal of why to doing it. Yes, we're going to increase efficiency and do that. Well, how are you going to increase efficiency? Throwing $2 billion to increase what? And that's kind of the issue. Now, I'm very much simplifying it down because I don't have enough time to go into it. But there's a lot of other things that needs to be done around that in order to make sure that whole phase gets along. Because it's not just $2 billion to make it look nice for the Olympics or anything like that and then go to waste. because you see what happens with the Olympics, especially like what the last one that just happened now in China, which was a complete disaster. Honestly, in my sense, I didn't even watch it. I didn't even care. But yeah, it needs to be done in a more balanced sense. $2 billion is way too expensive when there's no afterthought into what it's going to contribute. GN with the other super chat, they should install cams at crossings for violators. Yeah, they have that at some stations, but I agree. That should be more along the whole entire line. All right, so last in the audience, CTR Lee, and that will be our final chat. Welcome aboard, man. Alrighty, CTR Lee, you've been invited to speak. See you in the live chat over here, so come on aboard. Let me see. Maybe car manufacturers should put a limit on how many vehicles each dealership should have. That's never going to happen, and that's kind of against the whole reason why they really do. They limit certain vehicles of what dealership gets what. CTR Lee in the comments, libertarian politicians like Randy O'Toole claims that the U.S. should not invest in high-speed rail because of outdated technology. Yeah, again, we've talked about the Lobert argument and how ridiculous it is. Saying that we shouldn't pay for railroads because railroads take public money. Do you know how much the car has taken? Do you know how much roads have taken that we spend close to $200 billion every year? To upkeep our own road system. I mean, I don't know. These people are living in La La Land. They're libertarians, so of course. CTR Lee, you are on.
Oh, there we go. Hello, Demetrius. How are you?
Doing all right. How about you? I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I'm actually here in your northern neighbor in Toronto, Ontario.
Oh, okay. Well, good to hear. Hope it's not too cold over there.
Yeah, and I've been paying close attention to the development in the United States. So there was one thing you just mentioned about libertarian politicians and about like Randy O'Toole saying that how we should not be investing in high speed rail because of some kind of outdated technology and we should all gotta go all in on gadget bonds like Hyperloop and things like that.
Yeah,
I think you talk about that, right?
Oh yes, of course. That, right? Yeah,
And I even jokingly referring to making up something called a thorium powered jetpacks in the group to kind of mock on the concept for it, too. Because like you said, this concept is basically ridiculous when you can't really come to think of it. I mean drivers also use roads that are built by public government, right? So
right.
There's that argument too.
Yeah, and it's a really dumb argument, and then when you look at the results of it just across the spectrum, talking about societal effects, environmental effects, economic effects, it's been a disaster. Just because the S&P keeps going up or the GDP keeps going up doesn't mean that normal life and people's actual, pay and salary and everything else is going up, because it hasn't.
It hasn't. But then there also brought up another question, which are some of us have been discussed about in the ARC Facebook group, which is basically trying to turn the Americans what do you call it? Kind of like the British model of European model of having separating infrastructure from the operators. So basically, the government oversees the entire the U.S. railroad network, whereas the railroad operators, freight operators like BNSF or even CSX can kind of use it like it's on the interstate and even Amtrak too. So this way, I'm not sure. I don't know how this system would kind of go on about with implement, and how would the companies will react towards the kind of proposal towards it.
Well, we know how that works out, because in the UK it's been a complete disaster as it's worked out. Because the way that they've privatized, instead of going ahead and having a company, completely right, because there's a different way of doing that, of having a privatization, and there's a certain way of having it in a sort of a corporatized sense, And I'm not saying corporate in terms of having corporation or corporatocracy. I'm talking about that you have cooperation, and that sort of corporation, a cooperation of having the company, like let's say one of the JR companies in Japan. And again, we keep bringing up the Japanese example because it's worked. The Japanese company, in cooperation with the Japanese government and with the Japanese people, to have that right of way there, to be able to, own it, to be able to maintain it, to be able to upgrade it, to be able to own its own tracks, to be able to own its own infrastructure, its stations, and everything else, and run that. So that system has worked out, and having that in a sort of regional space has worked out. And here in the United States, where we had, let's say different railroads that have owned their own railroads and owned their own lines, and then they'll go ahead and let other passenger rail or cargo trains run on their lines, with the payment or something like that. So that sort of cooperation between that does work. Having it where it's completely separated, where the government owns and leases it out to certain companies, doesn't work.
Because I know one thing about the passenger rails in the United States, especially with Amtrak, is that passenger trains always get shafted when they're running on other companies' freight lines. That means freight companies usually let the freight trains go had the priority first. That means, and usually passenger trains get sidelined for hours because how American freight trains are long.
Yeah, and that's again the issue where you get that solved is what Brightline is doing, because you have a freight company in itself spinning off its own company to go ahead and run passenger trains, and they're prioritizing their own passenger trains to be able to run a fast, safe, and effective service. So they don't stop Brightline because a cargo train needs to go through. They stop the FEC so Brightline can go through. Brightline has priority. Running it that way, where people enjoy that service and pay more. So people, the average citizen is good with that service. Brightline is making money on that, and then the government is okay with that and promotes that to happen. That's the sort of cooperation that you need, because the thing is that we see in this country, it's taking two, right? It's only taking the government and the companies, and then that's where you get a corporatocracy, where basically the companies take control through the government, through lobbying, in order to take control of the whole entire system. And who's been left out has been the people, the rest of the 99%, as people like to call it. And this is not being left-wing politics. This is complete. This is just simple example, right? Because I'm very right wing, to the point that it's right wing that it's not for most public consumption, but to the point that I'm saying that you have to have the three connections. You cannot just have government and companies. Private companies are not people. Okay, they're not, but you have to have people in there too. Okay, in this example, so that's sort of the issue that we're getting to.
Well, so a more accurate term would be because companies, when you think at the end of the day, there's also people as well. So I think it would be more accurate to say the government, the company, and perhaps the public. Would be better,
because that's not integrated. That's the problem. That's what I'm saying. It's sort of integralist in what we're saying is that, or at least what I'm saying is that you need to have more of the public's, not input, but at least power to at least affect the change, and that's what's going on. Because the thing is that you vote, and we vote for certain politicians or for certain people expecting that they're going to make a result, and they don't. So that's kind of the failure that we see with modern democracy, is that we're voting for change, but change doesn't happen. So that's kind of something wrong with the system there then.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
And also want to talk about what's going on down in Texas, because last I heard from the news is that they had a major legal roadblock down there.
Yeah. So again, we're kind of out of time on this, but the last that I've heard about that, because I have been looking for Texas news a little bit more frequently, is that we still haven't heard from the courts. So as soon as we're able to hear from that, and again, if you're part of Discord like you are now, we'll probably have somebody there that will hear it first before anybody else, and we'll be talking about it. So we're keeping on track of that. Not to worry.
All right. Thanks for having it here.
Not a problem. You too. Take care, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
Alrighty, folks. So that ends our calls. That ends our well, that's basically toward the end of our stream. We had a pretty good showing today, and I wasn't really expecting that many people. So that's good. We're getting involved, and we see this as something interesting. So I may do this a little more often, just these short streams. Short meaning less than 2 hours. All right. Last comments, and then we're gonna call it a night here. But yeah, guys, like I said, and I've said this before, this is nothing new. It's gonna get worse before it gets better. But at least we're coming up with solutions, right? Because it's one thing to just complain and complain and complain. Oh, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. Yeah, we know, but we're having solutions. We're having discussions. So, once we get into, once we're able to revolutionize or revolutionize the system, we're able to go ahead and put in place, the actual solutions that work, that give good results. So yeah, that's where we're at today. Again, guys, just stay safe out there. All right, last comment I'll answer. Is it easy to add express bus routes from suburbs to suburbs? That's again, the issue is you're going from suburb to suburb. At that point, and again, even if you were to put a train from suburb to suburb, again, the issue is that you're going from you're just connecting more suburbs instead of connecting people within and outside the periphery of a city. So that's kind of the major issue. Alrighty, guys. So we're going to go ahead and end it there. Okay. God bless you guys. Be safe out there. And we will see you on board next time. Godspeed.